So basically this session is about Hadoop and the basics of Hadoop. If you have any prior knowledge to big data, then you know like Hadoop is the classic one on-premise distributed big data system. So in this session, today I'm going to take or cover few topics. So these are the pretty much agenda of this session. What is Hadoop and the main components of Hadoop, Hadoop architecture, and Hadoop fault tolerance, data locality and rack awareness. And we'll see some Unix commands and HDFS commands. So firstly, what is Hadoop? So as we know, Hadoop is something related to big data. But what actually Hadoop is, it is an open source framework. Framework is nothing but a group of libraries and utilities which gives us some solution to the technology. So what actually the solution provided by Hadoop? By using traditional database systems, we cannot handle the big data, like huge amount of data. So Hadoop gives us a solution of distributed storage and parallel processing of large or huge data. So it allows for the storage of data across multiple commodity hardware. What do you mean by commodity hardware? So in the cluster, it is actually a master and slave system. So all the slave nodes are of commodity hardware. They do not have any high-end configuration or resources. They are just as our personal computers, but they have the total performance of cluster is considered by summing up all the resources used by these group of systems. So thereby, like it follows the horizontal scaling of systems. So if you have attended my previous session on big data, you would know the difference between the horizontal scaling and vertical scaling. For people don't know what it is, like horizontal scaling is like adding more resources to existing powerful system, which is a single system. And vertical scaling is something we can add resources by adding more number of systems to the cluster. So this follows like horizontal scaling. We can add any number of nodes. By using this, we can gain efficient processing of the huge volume of data. So like people might have a question in their mind, like why Hadoop? Do we have to learn Hadoop to be a data engineer? So as a data engineer, you deal with the batch of data, which is like historical data. You don't process it then and there, but you wait for some time and then process the data in the form of batch. So for a batch processing, Hadoop is the best solution because it is easily scalable and it has fault tolerance. And if you take any database, it will just process structured data, the traditional database. But Hadoop can accommodate structured as well as unstructured or like semi-structured as well. Any kind of data or variety of data can be processed by Hadoop. So this is the optimal one if you are dealing with larger data set and variety of data set. So this is a good tool to have in your toolbox if you are dealing with the large data. So now let us see what are the core components of Hadoop. Actually, there are three core components of Hadoop. Those are HDFS, which is a distributed storage. So HDFS stands for Hadoop Distributed File System, and it is the storage component of the entire Hadoop. And the next one is MapReduce. This is for distributed computation or parallel processing. This is the computation component of Hadoop. It processes the data and generates the data set. And if you know about Hadoop, in previous version, like Hadoop 1, when it was released, it had only two components in it, that is HDFS and MapReduce. But later on, from Hadoop 2 to 4, like they have introduced Yarn in the Hadoop 2 version. So Yarn is nothing but they just scooped out the resource management thing from MapReduce and created a separate component called Yarn. It takes care of all the resources which are necessary to process the entire data, and MapReduce just take care of the computation process from the Hadoop 2. So till date, we have 4 versions of Hadoop released, and that is done by Yahoo. Like previously, this Hadoop, like Google has introduced a few papers on HDFS, distributed storage and distributed computation, and Yahoo took those papers which was released by Google, and then they implemented Hadoop. So now we are clear about the Hadoop version 1 and version 2, right? So these three are the core components of Hadoop, but there are also other components in Hadoop which are like Hadoop Common, which is a group of libraries or jar files or config files or some scripts which are used to manage the entire cluster. And then we have different ecosystem tools in Hadoop like Hive, Hue. These are the Hive is the data warehousing tool, and Pig we have that is used for cleaning, and then Impala. Like these tools are available and they are like well integrated with Hadoop system. Those are the tools which are just like on top of Hadoop. They are used for certain jobs of ETL. But these three are the core components of Hadoop. Are we clear about Hadoop components, or do you have any questions about it till now? If you have any questions, please put it. Obviously, okay. Nowadays, MapReduce usage is not much because there are few drawbacks of MapReduce. It actually takes and reads the data from the disk. So the process takes some time. In order to overcome the latency and in order to overcome these latencies, Spark is introduced wherein it processes in memory, that is in RAM. Thereby, like people nowadays are not using MapReduce because it takes more time. It is just replaced by Spark. So cluster, for those people who don't know what a cluster is, it's just a group of machines where one machine is acted as master and the other machines in the group which are of commodity hardware act as slave nodes. This master node is also known as name node, and slave nodes are the data nodes which holds actual data and which performs the processing. But name node is a special node which holds the metadata, like in which node which part of data is stored. It just tracks everything, the location of some file where it will be stored. So if we observe this Hadoop architecture, it has, this is the client. When client requests for certain data, then he should not communicate with the data nodes directly. He just send a request to the name node, which is the master node, and then the master node gives him the metadata. So by checking the metadata again, the client can access through the data nodes directly. So now when he get the metadata, he knows which data node to check for his required data. So this is a process which Hadoop follows. And if we observe, like name node should be highly available node. So it is not made of commodity hardware. It is customized and it is of high-end machine because it should be available all the time. And data nodes are like simple computation nodes which performs, so they cannot be like of high configuration is not required. Normal resources can be used, and if we require any more computation power or more resources, then we can add few more data nodes to our cluster so that we can accommodate the volume of data. So Hadoop is the combination of HDFS and YARN. So if we observe this architecture diagram, so here if you see in master node, there are two components, name node and job tracker. And in slave nodes, there is data node and task tracker. So name node, data node are the components of HDFS, and job tracker, task tracker are the components of MapReduce, which is the computation engine. And YARN also has two components, that in master node, it is the resource manager, and on slave node, it has node manager, which are the components communicate in the Hadoop architecture. Is the metadata from name node shared with client as well as or only with data nodes? On data nodes, there will be only the data. There is no metadata. So the name node tracks every metadata and the block like data location, and that will be shared to client. But metadata is never shared to data node. Hadoop is a combination of HDFS and MapReduce, right? So as I discussed, Hadoop is Hadoop has these components in it. HDFS, MapReduce, and YARN are the core components. And other than these three components, we also have Hive, Hue, and Impala and Pig. Like many tools are available in the Hadoop. So all these together form Hadoop. So now let us move to the next topic. So when we receive a file, suppose a file is of 600 MB. So now what happens to that file? How it is stored in the HDFS cluster? So as we know, the data will be stored in the data nodes, right? So there is no connection between the file and the name node. All the files should be stored in data node. So suppose we have a 5-node cluster. So we have 5 data nodes in our cluster. So on that 5 data nodes, how this file will be stored? Is it that the entire file will be stored in single data node, or how it is stored? So if we know, suppose we take 600 MB file that is not directly stored in some data node, that will be divided into small blocks, which are the default size of any block in the Hadoop is 128 MB. It is started since Hadoop 2. So in Hadoop 1, it was 64 MB, but later on, like each block, default block size will be 128 MB. Now that 600 MB file will be divided by 128. So we get 4 parts of that file, and some part will be left with the 88 MB. So suppose that now we have 5 blocks, and then each block can be stored in each machine because we have 5-node cluster. And then parallelly, the MapReduce program will be dumped into the node, and then that will process. Thereby, we can implement the parallel processing. It is just an example with a small number of data, but in real time, it will be of some MBs and GBs. So is it clear what is blocked and how it is divided? Usually, all the data nodes are commodity machines only, but altogether it is a group, right? So that can perform complex computational tasks. The main difference between Hadoop and other traditional databases is just that it is a distributed system where it can accommodate a huge amount of data and variety of data. Coming to databases, we have a constraint while we ingest the data. We cannot ingest any format. It has particular schema, and those schema only used to ingest the data. But in HDFS, it is not like that. We can ingest any kind of data. So databases are typically used for transactional systems, and this is mainly for analytical purpose. So it doesn't reduce any requirement of database. These two have their own purposes. You mean how Hadoop is called distributed database? Because it works in a cluster, right? So database, traditional database is a single server, but here a group of machines is working together to solve a big data, like handle the big data. So that is why it is called distributed. It is like distributed database. So now you are clear what a block is. Then let us see how fault tolerance is achieved in Hadoop. So there are blocks. So what happens if some block is corrupted? So do we lose the data, or how it is recovered? So to have a backup plan, these blocks are replicated. Each block is like copied and made two other copies of each block. So thereby, if we have 5 blocks, then in Hadoop, entirely 5 into 3, 15 blocks are created, where 2 are the replicas and the 1 is the original. So these 3 copies, if one copy is corrupted, if one data node is down, then we can, that name node can see, by using this block report, it understands that particular block is corrupted, and then it checks on the which other data node the replica of that particular block is present, and then creates another copy and places in the data node where it has found the corrupted block. So how does name node know if the data node is failed? So what if the data node itself is dead and it is down and it is not responding anything? So Hadoop follows one mechanism called heartbeat mechanism, where every 3 seconds, each data node will send a heartbeat signal to the name node. So if the name node stops receiving this heartbeat from any data node, it waits for 10 consecutive heartbeats. So if any particular data node misses to send 10 consecutive heartbeats to the name node, then it understands that really this machine or that particular data node is not working, or it is running very slow. So it need to do something with that data node, and it checks what is the data present in that data node, and then tries to replicate the same blocks in another data node which is available in the cluster. So thereby, if any block is corrupted or any data node is corrupted, so it has these mechanisms to bring the data back. So this property is called fault tolerance. Like if we are able to face any failure, and we are able to handle the failure properly, and there is no data loss here. So that ability of this system is known as fault tolerance. So you might get the doubt, like if data node is failed, then name node will recover it. But what if the name node itself fails? Then how? How this is handled in the Hadoop? So this name node will send fs image. Fs image is nothing but the current status of the name node with all the mappings of blocks and the data nodes, and it creates another file called edit logs, where it will for 30 seconds it will write down each transaction performed in the data node, and these two files are sent to the another secondary name node. So for every 30 seconds these two files will be sent to the secondary name node, and if in case name node is failed, then secondary name node will be active, and it has all the data, right? It has the current mappings and the 30 seconds transactions. So when this secondary name node clubs these two files, it gets merged fs image file. So it has all the data which name node has. In case of name node's failure, then this can become active and take the place of name node. So this mechanism is called checkpointing in Hadoop. So if name node fails, checkpointing comes to rescue, and still the Hadoop system will work properly. So this is pretty much the architecture of Hadoop. We have name node, secondary name node, and these are the data nodes. And name node carries metadata, and then these are the blocks of any file stored in it, and name node will do block operations, like it will read the blocks, it will write any blocks to the data node. So it holds every block information. So do anyone have any questions on architecture? I see no questions. So let's jump to the next topic. So secondary name node has metadata from name node even before name node fails, so that when name node fails, it gets activated. Yeah. So for every 30 seconds, it will share this FS image and edit logs to the secondary name node, such that when it gets failed, this can be active and take part. So what is, let's get to the another feature of Hadoop, that is data locality. So what is data locality? The input data doesn't flow to the application layer. Instead, the computing process is run at the same node where data is located. So if we observe in traditional databases, what happens is when the data will be stored in a storage layer, and if we want to fire any query, then if you want to get some output from the storage layer, then the data is moved to the application layer, then it processes the data and gives us the output. But here in Hadoop, what happens? We are not moving the data. As the volume of the data present in Hadoop is very huge, it is very inefficient to move the data entirely to the process and process it. So we embed the mapper code, which is the computational process, to the data node where the data is present. So here we are passing the code to the data. We are not passing the data to the code. So we will embed the MapReduce code to the data node and let it work on the data, let it process the data and generate the data sets. So that is called data locality principle. And the other thing is rack awareness, which is like if we observe here, there is a switch, network switch, and under that there are 3 racks. So what is a rack? Rack is nothing but the group of machines under a switch. So each switch has their own group of nodes. So we have 3 racks here, and if we suppose that we have 3 blocks in a file, consider A, B, C. So as we know, replication factor in Hadoop is 3. So copy of A, like 3 copies of A are created, 3 copies of B are created, 3 copies of C are created. But where to place these copies? Like, do we have to place these copies in a single machine or single rack, or how to keep this for an optimal result? Rack awareness says that place the 2 copies in a single switch, not necessary on the single data node. There is no use if we keep 2 replicas in a single data node, because if 2 of them are down, like it is somehow the data node got crashed and it is not working, then we will be lost in the 2 replicas, right? So it is not suggestible to store 2 replicas in a single data node. So what to do? Then shall we keep each copy in each data node? That is fine. Then should we keep the two replicas in a single rack, or should we keep each replica in one rack? Like suppose A is there, so one copy of A should be kept in rack 1, one copy in rack 2, one copy in rack 3. If we consider this scenario, then we are keeping each replica in a different rack. Rack is nothing but it is in the different geographical location, right? So what happens if some data node is lost in this case? So we have to take the replica from another geographical location, where here also we are moving the data from one network to other network. This is also like not a optimal solution. So that is why this rack awareness suggests to keep two replicas in a rack but not on the single data node. So in one rack we can keep two replicas but not on the single data node. It is neither suggestible to keep each replica in each rack, so because there is a shuffling of data, movement of data, which is very inefficient in the big data. So that is why it suggests keep the two replicas in one rack and the other replica in one rack. Because if one of the data node is down, it can take from the other data node in the same rack. Here there is no network movement of data through a network. If in case two of the data nodes are down, which is not happen usually, in that case we can fetch it from the nearby geographical location, that is another rack. So is everybody clear about data locality and rack awareness, or do we have any questions on it? So there are no questions, so let's jump to the next topic. Now, as a data engineer, we know that we are dealing with a distributed system. So all these systems in the distributed cluster, all these data nodes or edge nodes are the Linux based systems. So it is necessary for a data engineer to have basic knowledge of Linux commands. Let us see few of the well used commands for a data engineer. Root directory is denoted by this slash, and it is the starting of this tree. Directory is nothing but a folder, and then home directory is denoted by this tilde, and relative path and absolute path. So if we start it from the root, slash and then some directory, and then slash and some directory and your file, so that is called relative path, which starts from the root. And absolute path is nothing but it starts from the current directory where you are staying. And how do we create a directory in the Linux? There is a command called mkdir, which allows us to create a directory, or in Windows system it is called a folder. mkdir space and the directory name, if we give, that would create a directory in the Linux machine. And how do we create a file in the Linux machine? There are multiple ways how we can create a file, but touch is the command which creates empty file in the Linux system. So touch and then space and a file name we can give, that will create an empty file. There is by using of gedit also we can create the file. Instead of touch we can give gedit and then create file1.txt, and that would open a text file where you can write your data, save it, and then perform your task. Or else we can also use cat command to create files. Generally, one other purpose of cat is to display all the file contents. So if we give cat space and the file name, that would display all the contents in the file. And rm and file1, that will remove the file. So what happens when you wanted to remove the directory itself? So when you give rm and the directory name. If that directory is having any files, then that won't be deleted. You will not be able to delete it directly. First, you have to remove those files, then give rm directory 1, then that would delete the files. Or if you don't want to remove the inside files and directly want to remove the directory, then you should give this option -r, which says that recursively delete everything. Then in this case, when you give rm -r and directory name, then it deletes all the files as well as directory. So what if you want to copy the contents of file 1 to file 2? Then just simply use cp file 1 and file 2. All the contents of file 1 will be moved to the file 2. It is just like creating the replica of your file 1. So what if you want to change the file name? You don't want file 2. The name should be file 3. Then you can use mv file 2 should be changed to file 3. And so mv has two purposes. One is to rename a file, which we have seen, and there is another purpose of mv, which is used to move file from one folder to the other folder. So if we give the path of some directory instead of file 3, that would move this file 2 to that directory. That is just like cut paste. And cd means change directory. Suppose you are in your home directory and you want to go to some other directory, then you can give cd and directory 2. Then this will get you to the directory 2. And how do you, like if you want to see what are the files present in some directory, then you can give ls and then the directory name. If you are in that directory and then give ls, then that would show all the files in the directory. But if you want to see the permissions of the file, then you can give ls-l. Along with that, you want to sort the files based on the time, then you can give ls-lt. And r is something you want the latest files to be displayed at the end of the list, then you can use r. H is for like if there are any file contents that will be shown in the bytes, but we as a human don't have tendency to read the size of file in the form of bytes. We understand megabytes somewhat better than bytes, right? So we just use this H option, which gives the human readable format of file size in the MB format, not in the bytes. It means all machines or systems or computers which are acted as distributed data mode should always be in on mode live, shall be on mode always. If there is data flowing, then the master node will be live always. And if there is any data to be processed, then only these data nodes will get activated and process the data. And one more helpful utility when you deal with big data or as a data engineer, when you need to work with many files. So we will be having some meta file where we have all the column names and the data type used. So if we want to do analysis whether it has all the column names or not, then it is a very useful utility where the data engineer can analyze his data. Suppose we want to check whether all the columns are present in the file. Like if a file has the first line as header with all the columns, and you have this meta file with you, and you know it should have all these columns, then you can use this awk, and then give it the delimiter where in the file meta file all the words are delimited by pipe symbol. So give the pipe delimited and then you want to print the second column. So print $2. If you want to print the first ABCDE, that is the $1. So if you want to print the call 1, call 2, call 3, call 4 and call 5, that is $2. And the data type last column is the $3. And then give your meta file name, that would give all the column names line with a line. Then you can do your data analysis, or you can copy all these columns in your Excel sheet, and then you can copy the header from the actual file which consists of data. Then you can do your data analysis when you want to run any pipeline. Before running the pipeline, you should check whether your data has the correct format or not, whether it is having the full data or not. So in that case, AWK is a very useful command which is used for data analysis on the day-to-day purpose. Okay, please explain the command ls-ltrh. So ls is for listing, where L option is used for long listing, which shows the permissions of the file, whether the file has read-only permission, whether you can write the file, override the file or not. So there are few permissions in this Linux system. It is not like the Windows system. It is very secure, right? So if someone has created some file in the Linux, you don't, unless they give the permission to change that file, you don't have the permission to overwrite it if they give only read-only permission. So if you want to check any kind of these permissions for any file, then you can give ls-l. That would show all the file permission. So when you want to, when you use only L, then that don't follow any particular format based on the time. So if you want to sort your list of files based on the time, so you can use time, option T. So if you use ls-lt, then that would show all the files in the timely manner which it has created latest, that will be on the top of the screen. If you want to display your latest file in the bottom of the list, then you use reverse option, ls-ltr. And when you use these things, there will be a column which specifies file size in the Linux system. So by default, it will be displayed in the bytes format, which is not human readable. We know the MBs, right? We cannot measure in bytes. So for that purpose, we use H, which gives the file size in MB format. So which services we have to use for ML model creation and model training in Hadoop? So as a data engineer, we do not create any ML models. It is the job of a data scientist. So this after we generate data sets, clean the entire data and generate these data sets, that will be used by data scientists. They create the ML model creation and then work on the created data sets. So few more useful commands as a data engineer are, if you have a file 1 and you want to know how many records are present in that file, so that time you can use WC, which is the word count -L and the file name. That would give you the entire record count. So that when you have ingested the entire file in the data warehouse, you can cross verify the count, like number of records. So this is also very important Linux command as a data engineer. And suppose if you are dealing with a zip file, not the text files. So at that time, how do you create a zip file in the Linux system? That can be used, like zip is the command used to create zip file. Give zip keyword, then give the zip file name which you want to create, and give all the text files which you want to zip together. So if you have all the text files in single directory which you want to zip together, you can use this asterisk symbol .txt. Then all the txt files in that particular directory will be zipped together and form a zip file. So if there is a zip file in some directory and you want to see what all the files present in that zip file, at that time we can use zip info space and that particular zip file name. So that would list all the files present in that zip file. If you don't want to extract it, then you can just want to see what are the files present in the zip file, then you can use zip info. Or if you want to use that particular files and then you want to extract them, then you can use unzip space my zip file. This would extract all the files in that particular zip file and then you can use those files. So what if you want to print only few lines in a file? So if you want only first 5 lines in particular file, then you can use head -5 and file name. This would give you the first 5 records of this file1.txt. And what if you want only last 5 lines in that particular file? At that time, tail-file and file name. This would fetch you all the last 5 records in that file. One more useful command is sed, which is used for substituting some word in the file. So generally, if we use cat and file name, that would display all the contents in the file. But if we give a pipe symbol and then pass the output to the next command, which is scd, and you want to substitute, S for substitute the word learn with study, and that you want to substitute every instance of learn in that file with the study, then you use the option G, which is global. If you remove this G, that will substitute only the first occurrence of learn with the study. If you use G, that will substitute every instance of learn in this message.txt file with study. So sed is also a good command which can be used for data analysis purpose as a data engineer. Suppose if some source has sent you some data file and you want to correct some column name, you don't want particular format of, suppose co-pay is one column, co-pay, but you don't want hyphen for that, you want underscore as per the format, then you can just use sed command. Like you can keep here co-pay and here you can keep what you want, that is co_pay. Thereby you can substitute the word and make it correct without even opening the file. So that is the main use case of this sed. The other command is grep. It is used to search for something. Like if you are checking for error file, error log file is there, you want to check for particular error, you cannot go through each and every line in the file, it is so huge. So in that time you can just keep cat your error file and then pipe it with grep and give the word error here, so that would give you the exact error statement without even opening the entire file. So these are the very important utilities which, as a data engineer, when you are handling Linux system, these commands would be helpful. There are no open questions. Shall we move to the other topic? So finally, the last topic of the session is HDFS commands. So pretty much these are the just extension of what commands we have just seen, like ls we have discussed it, and then tail we discussed, cat we discussed, mkdir, rmdir. So if we want to deal any files in the HDFS, it is similar to the Linux commands, but just that we just add these two keywords before that command, Hadoop fs and then ls. So if we do this, then it will be helpful for us to view the files in any local system. So in local machine, if you see, our home directory will be like this slash stands for root. After root, your home directory will be there, and in that home directory, you can give your name. So this entire directory is acting as a home directory for you. And if we absorb Hadoop, so what is the home directory in Hadoop HDFS? So it will be something like root, user, and the username. So here there is no home. Here it will be user for Hadoop, and for local system it will be home. So that is the main difference you have to observe if you are in the Hadoop environment or your local system. And then similarly, if there is any file in Hadoop and if you want to check the last 10 lines of the file, then you can give the path of the file where it is present in the Hadoop distributed system, and then just give this command Hadoop fs -tail 10 and the path where the file is existing. Similarly, if you want to display all the contents of file, then give this cat command. If you want to create a directory, then you can use this. So user slash Cloudera is your home directory in HDFS. And if you want to create a directory with your name, so you can use this command mkdir and specify the directory name which you want to create. Then this would create a directory on your name in the HDFS. Similarly, if you want to remove the directory, then rmdir will work for you if that directory is empty. So what if the directory is not empty? You want to remove along with the files which are present, then rmdir won't work for you. You have to use this rm -r, which means recursively delete everything in that directory. Then that would remove entire directory even if it has files. If you want to delete some file, then you can use -rm along with Hadoop fs and give the path on the Cloudera where the file is existing. So what if you have some files in your local machine in the Linux, you want to copy the file from local to HDFS, then you can use Hadoop fs -copy from local. This is the keyword, and then you can give the local path where the file is present and the HDFS path where you want to copy the file. Instead of copy from local, you can also use the put command. And what if you want to transfer a file which is located in HDFS to your local system? Then you can use Hadoop fs -get HDFS path and then local path. This will transfer the file from HDFS to your local system. And then what if you want to copy file from one HDFS location to the other HDFS location? Then you can use Hadoop fs -cp HDFS location of current file and where you want to copy it, destination path. So source path and destination path both belongs to HDFS here. So these are the pretty much basic commands which a data engineer should know to get started with Hadoop. So this is the end of the session.